6.2 billion transactions in Sweden every year. Do you actually take it for granted now, Bank ID?
Absolutely. I mean, I asked my kids about this, and they take it absolutely for granted. They can't imagine living here, doing their normal things without using Bank ID. So it's sort of part of everyday life. I also check the figures. It's 17 million transactions a day. So we're 10 million people in Sweden. If you take away the kids, that means that's two transactions per person per day. One of the problems we had developing websites was knowing who we're talking to. So, I mean, you can have a website, you can put out a lot of information, but it's very difficult to sell anything if you don't know who's on the other end of the process you're dealing with. So I was very disappointed really working for some of the insurance companies I did that we couldn't sell anything online in the late 90s. So we needed a solution to be able to say who's David and who's Andrew. And the Swedish banks came up with that solution in 2003, which is basically a digital certificate that you have on your phone or on your computer, which works like a passport, and so gives you the possibility to identify yourself. You basically have the opportunity to log into a service you've never used before without having to remember a new password. When I'm logging into a service, I'm not resharing my personal information. There's a third party, a bank, saying that Andrew is Andrew, and I don't have to add personal information again and send it over the internet to a company or a public authority to show that I am who I am.
What do you say then to the critics who say sometimes, oh, well, this is a national identity scheme by the back door?
I would say that you're actually saving sharing more personal information. If you don't have a system like this with a digital certificate, then every time you want to use a new service, you've got to send information about yourself over the internet to the entity that you're communicating with. With a digital certificate, you can provide a sort of a third-party access so that no information is actually sent over the internet. So in the UK example that we're talking about with OneID, it would be your bank would say that David Davis is David Davis and he's nobody else, without sending all your personal information over the internet again. And they would provide that guarantee that you are who you say you are. It's confidence, it's ease of use, and it's security, isn't it? I can give you an example. Last night, I was selling my old car to my son. I haven't actually done any access to the register for car owners for years. But then you go to that service in Sweden, and the login is, guess what, Bank ID. So no, I didn't have to remember a password. I didn't have to do anything new. I can use exactly the same service as I use for my daily banking. I could log into the National Car Register and show that I owned the car, and I could transfer ownership to my son in 5 minutes.
What is the potential for growth here?
I would say you can take the Swedish example. If the normal status today is that everybody logs in twice a day on average, each citizen who is over 18, that is the potential in the UK as well. So what are we talking about? 45, 50 million people who are adults in the UK. If they use it twice a day, that's 100 million transactions a day.
I must ask you, though, about security. Yes, simplicity. Yes, tried and tested. But if that security is breached, isn't that risk all the greater? I think that's one of the things that people might fear.
Yes, I can understand that, certainly. But we're talking bank level security here for all transactions. So the first point I would make is that this has been running for 20 years and it has not been breached in terms of technical security. And neither have any of the online banking systems, as far as I know. I mean, none of them, the online banking systems work both in the UK and Sweden. People are not having their accounts emptied, and so we should believe in those systems. The standard one for Sweden, there are two sorts: Bank ID, which is installed on a computer, say this one, or mobile Bank ID, which is installed on a smartphone as an app. So if I choose that one, it will offer me a QR code. I would take my telephone, open the Bank ID app, point it at the QR code, put in my personal code, and then I've identified myself. As simple as that.